So we're going to have a look at how to use watercolour on a flower image today, how to use them, just these tinned watercolours here, how to use them effectively to create different colour shades. So as you can see, I've pre-lined my lines and that's so I don't have to do as much work around the edge to hide those lines. It can look really ugly if you leave your pencil lines in place. You need to know the colour wheel for this to work well, so you need to know your primaries and your secondaries and how they harmonise well together. Now with watercolour, it's always water that's going to control the paint. So if the paint's too thick when you put it on, you can use water to thin it out. And if it's too thin, the best thing to do is to leave it to dry and then add further paint on top. Now as you can see, I'm going around the edges. I'm using a round tipped brush which will help with this as well. And what I'm going to do is just use my water and just bleed that out. I'm actually working in the direction of the petal. So I've only needed to wet my brush once and it's doing all the work for me. Now for blending colours, just overlap the colours. I'm just blending out the colour with what I've got on my brush, the water that I've got on my brush. Now with these watercolour sets, you tend to get two reds. You get like an orangey red and a pinky red. And if you combine the two, you do actually get more of a primary red. To make my pigment a little bit darker, I can then go over it when it's slightly drier. I'm working all the time in the direction that I want the colour to go. By using overlapping, I can encourage one pigment colour to come into another and to blend it in. So I've got the main parts in of the flower and the main colours. What I'm going to need to do now before I do anything else is just let this surface dry. So the watercolour is dried and now I want to be able to put in some definition and shadows into the centre of the flower just to separate all the petals. What I'm going to do for that is use a colour which is opposite on the colour wheel, but I'm also going to use some harmonising colours too. Some of the more important marks are probably the lightest marks that I've made with the green. They're just going to help with that subtle shadow. So that is how you use watercolour to describe the colour of a flower.